Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vivagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatoshyam The text is on the, I think it's on the, what? Don't I have?
sent it to everybody to print.
Okay, everyone's got the text. It's better to not read it first, to hear it. Vedanta is three stages: listening, reflecting, and assimilating. And it's better just to take it in without prejudice, without bias in the listening stage. Most of you have spent a lot of your life, or your mental life, your mental and emotional life in the spiritual world, sincerely looking to understand yourself and to know who you are and what life's all about. And you picked up ideas which have been helpful, and probably some that are not helpful. And so the more spiritual you are, the more longer you've been in the spiritual world, the more difficult it is for you to learn. Because you've invested, just like anything, you've invested so much in the spiritual world that there's a certain kind of attachment or pride to what you know. And you always think that what you know is the truth, or you want to think that it's the truth. And it may be and it may not be. With Vedanta, if you hear the teaching properly, you learn how to discriminate the subject from the object, then you'll always be able to check yourself to see if your understanding is in harmony with the truth. That's a self-actualized person, is someone whose understanding of the world and themselves is in harmony with Vedanta teaching. Because this is a complete teaching that doesn't come from people. This is revealed knowledge. It comes to people, not from people. If a teaching comes from somebody, that teaching is definitely going to be contaminated by that person's own beliefs and opinions and biases and so forth and so on. And this teaching built up over a long period of time, thousands of years, based upon revelations that different individuals at different times and places experienced and shared with each other, and they discovered that knowledge, what did not come from them, it came to them. And so they elevated that knowledge to what? To the position of authority in their understanding. So yes, you can have your personal experience. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to understand that how that personal experience that you're having of life, of yourself, the body, the world, so forth and so on, how that fits into the truth. Not my truth is okay, but what about the truth? What's the relationship between my truth and the truth? So, and that's always what Vedanta boils down in the long run. We start there, we continue there, and we finish with that idea that the objects that are known to me, the experiences, knowledge that are known to me are me, but I am what? Free of them. That makes my experience rich and truthful and beautiful. When it's all claimed to be mine, you're missing the most important part. Unless my means what? The self. If when you say I or my, you mean existence shining as complete, ever full consciousness, if that's what you mean, when you say I or me, then that's fine. It doesn't really matter what the words are, you just need to know what that to which the words refer. And the words are just what you think, and what you think is what you know, or not. So this this teaching is called Yoga and Vedanta. Not the same, but not different. There's a big war that's been going on for a long time between the yoga people and the Vedanta people. Patanjali, who's the most famous exponent of yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he attempted to bridge the gap. He wasn't a non-dual Vedanta Mahatma, but he was a compiler. In other words, he was a spiritual guy who had a scientific mentality, and he collected these teachings that were available at the time and tried to make sense out of them, organize them for people's understanding. So you're going to get here in the Yoga Sutras, you're going to get a basic outline of Vedanta, but you won't get the teaching itself. At the same time, so the war between the knowledge seekers and the experiential seekers, the yogi people, that war is basically foolish, because you're not going to be able to assimilate this knowledge if you don't practice yoga. You'll see what the definition of yoga is and how to practice yoga. You'll see as we go. But unless you have some control or mastery of your mind, how are you going to assimilate, hear what's being said, and analyze what's being said, and assimilate what's being said in the Vedanta teaching? So you could argue that yoga is even more important than Vedanta, that yoga is superior to Vedanta because without it, your biases and your beliefs and opinions are going to get in the way and cause what? Just cause suffering. Our definition of suffering is confusing this, the awareness, ever born, unborn existence shining as consciousness, with the objects, i.e. the experiences, the situations, people, things, places, and experiences that I have confusing the two. That's what Vedanta calls freedom. Because if you know that this is apparently real, and that this is real, you won't chase something here, you won't pursue something here, thinking that it is real. That's all the problem that comes. Because, if you don't understand, then you assume that what's happening to you, the experiences that Ishvara, or ignorance, is presenting to you, is in fact the truth. And once you take something that's not real to be real, then you're suffering. We call it adhyasa, or superimposition. It means just confusing one thing with another. And we have this wonderful instrument called the intellect that it took billions of years to evolve. Think of all the things that happened before humans appeared on the earth. Before human beings appeared here on the earth, think of how long life had been going on. Because all the processes of our being that are operating in us now, we didn't invent. We inherited them from what? From unicellular organisms right on up. So essentially, we're just animals that think. I know we think we're very, very conceited, and we think we're very, very complex and deep and complicated and so forth and so on, but we're not complex or deep or complicated at all. We're a victim of a kind of vanity that makes us believe we're complicated and sensitive. I'm so sensitive. I'm so deep. There's so much going on inside me, etc., etc., etc. That becomes a kind of vanity that keeps us from appreciating the fact that we're just animals here. We have fears and we have desires. And those fears and those desires are the bedrock of our personality. Every living being has these two powers, fear and desire. It goes for things because it wants things, because it doesn't know what it is, and it needs to protect what it wants, what it obtains. So all our getting and keeping, and that's all life is getting certain things and holding on to those things. All of that is what? Predetermined for us. It's built in. And without objectifying that and understanding what it is, you're just asking for trouble. That's all. Once you're clear about it, then and you accept this legacy that we've gotten from from the beginning of life itself, when the first unicellular organism evolved and divided. When the basic cell, the original cell, split. Once it's split, it can split. And it can develop more and more and more complex combinations and permutations, so that we get a tremendous variety and novelty in life. And that complexity of the material world, that complexity is incredibly attractive and confusing. It's seductive. And what we want to do, what Vedanta is trying to do, is return us back to our original nature, which is indivisible. Yourself, existence, shine as awareness, cannot be divided, cannot be made complex and interesting. In fact, once you know this, you sometimes forget about it, and you say, "Oh, this is the only interesting thing," and then you just continue to like fascinate yourself with what's here. But what's here doesn't mean anything apart from the fact that you're aware of it, and that it's your awareness, that it's yourself that gives life to everything. So it turns out that I'm the boss. If I haven't got rid of this ignorance that's causing me to what? Be seduced by this, by my experience, then I'm in trouble. Then the world's bossing me, and the tail is wagging the dog. That doesn't work. The dog is meant to wag the tail. That's the way it is. And we've got it just backwards when we start. The world pushes us around. Our desires and fears push us around, send us over here, running away from this and going toward that. It's a very simple mechanism that's operating here. And to get a handle on this is the point. So it says here, it says, once the wonderful intimate relationship between the teachers of yoga and the teachers of Vedanta have been explained, this important seminar reveals the nature of the true, unborn, eternal, always experienced, innermost self. It discusses the self from 3 points of view. First, as our own innermost awareness or consciousness. 2, as the inert material aspect of reality, that's called Maya. And 3, as the ever-present steady current of bliss eternally shining in our hearts. Well, we have to weave all these 3 things together and show that what? The matter, the material, inert aspect of ourselves, and the bliss aspect, and the consciousness aspect are all non-separate, non-different. And because there are different words, and these, it seems as if these are 3 different aspects or part of this. We'll speak of it as if they were aspects or part, knowing that they're not aspects or parts, because this can't be divided. Eventually, there's no sense of discrimination whatsoever. The wisdom becomes non-discriminating. You don't need to discriminate because what? Because all of the teaching remnants, in other words, all the teachings which are just here to correct the problem, those all disappear also. And you're no longer what? You're no longer bothered by this distinction between the satya and the mithya, between the subject and the object. You're just present and aware as awareness itself, as existence itself. So it's a lifetime thing. It takes as long as it takes, and you should be committed to this. You people are all committed. That's why you're here. There's so many people there. Thousands of people watch the videos and read the website, actually. But not all of them are obviously capable of, or committed completely to it like you guys. So it's really nice to see you here and nice to teach you. People say, I'm getting better teaching. No, I'm not, actually. You guys are all getting better. You're generating the kind of satsang that needs a response, and I supply the response. That's all. So I can't do this without you. And if I'm getting better, it's only because you're getting better. You're growing. You're learning. The whole idea here is not to gain something particularly. It's just to keep learning. That's the nature of consciousness. It's curious. It just needs to know. It's never satisfied. Being satisfaction itself, it's never satisfied. It's always curious. It's always learning. And that's what makes life such a joy. We don't want to imagine there's some goal that I'm going to reach and then I'm going to stop growing and changing. Then you're dead. As soon as you stop growing and changing, you're dead. You might as well put you under 6 feet under and send you off to your next incarnation. That freshness, that spontaneity and freshness of life, right, should continue every minute of the day. Should be curious. I love cacti. You see, I've collected cactuses, and I have my favorites. And there's some I hate, and some I love, and I love to learn about. There's one that, oh man, she's so sweet, and she's so cute, and she's just so soft and inviting. You just want to touch her. But she's a little devil, I tell you. She's just waiting for you to come close, and immediately she shoots all these little stickers into you, and you can't get them out. It's just amazing to see how this world is, how Ishvara creates this world. And we call that, that appreciation of this world is love of Ishvara. The doubt-free knowledge that happens when Vedanta reveals the true nature of the self removes suffering that comes from thinking of ourselves as limited, incomplete, inadequate entities, and frees us to live what? Free, joyful lives. We're meant to live a joyful life here. That's what this is about. It's not about suffering here. You're meant to enjoy this thing. Okay, so that's the introduction. Qualifications. Always got qualifications. The intimate relationship between yoga and Vedanta. What would yoga be for? Qualifications. Yoga is the way you develop the qualifications. And it says here, if only yoga is required for liberation, there would be no need for Vedanta. This is a problem that we have in the yoga world. Is they believe that they're not interested in knowledge, they're not interested in Vedanta. Why? Because they believe that there's some state beyond this samsaric state, beyond the everyday life that we have. They believe there's some state, they define this as a state, that's accessible through action. They think that they can transcend this and go to here and establish themselves here, or make this state permanent. Maybe bring the state down here and make it permanent here, whatever it is, however these people think about it. Because why is that? Why do they have that view? Because they're dominated by Rajaguna. Rajaguna means desire. And desire is a very painful energy. I know, I understand that the world tells you that desire is absolutely wonderful. You should want all this stuff. The whole society is set up to generate desire. Obviously not for this, but it doesn't matter. The desire is always for some object, some experience that's available here. There's no critical thinking about desire itself. Why is it that whenever you have a desire, you want to fulfill it as quickly as possible? Think about it. Because it's painful. Is there any other reason? If it weren't painful, would you be in a hurry to fulfill it? No, no way. You'd be indifferent. Okay, that's cool. I can do that next week, or next year, next month, or later. No, but when that desire comes up, what? I immediately start to pursue it. Well, what's generating that desire? Huh? What's generating that desire for this or for that? For either one, for any desire itself, whether desire going toward a transcendental state or desire going toward a particular experience, what's generating that desire?
Sense of lack.
Huh?
Sense of lacking something.
Yeah, which means, yes, that's right. And what's that? Ignorance. You can see the key here? See how Vedanta is really slick and really fast if you get it? Huh? Because everything goes back to ignorance. If you understand that the I is full and complete and unborn, then what? Then desire doesn't bother you. But think about it. How many desires do you have that you're still pursuing? You still think that there's something here that can actually make you more full, more complete, more satisfied, more happy than you are right now. If you don't analyze the downside of desire, then you just have to keep doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's not make it a moral issue. It's just tiring. It wears you out. That's all. Because the desire only works on your material sheath. It just wears it out. It's just like an automobile. This is like an automobile. The more you use it, the more stress is put on the machine, and the more the shorter it lives, and the more pain and suffering that it experiences. So if I can like understand what is the cause of the desire and eliminate that cause with knowledge. If the problem is ignorance, then what would be the solution? Knowledge. If I can eliminate that, then what? Then I've solved the fundamental human problem. The desire. Desire, fear being what? Same thing. Don't you always have? Doesn't a desire imply a fear? When you want something, doesn't that immediately define a whole class of objects as not valuable, not wantable? Huh? And when you don't want something, when you fear something, doesn't that what immediately define a whole range of experiences as desirable? Does. That's what we mean by duality. We're just getting these terminologies sorted here at the beginning. Duality is zero sum. Zero sum means what? There's no gain or loss. But desire and fear, what? Put me in a situation where I think I can win or lose. And Vedanta says that's not true. Well, how does it say it? By what? By unfolding this logic. It's not that Vedanta says it, and so you should do it, like a big daddy, like, Ramji's a big guru, he says this, that, and the other. No, it's not like that. The logic itself tells you that it's pointless to indulge in your fears or your desires, because what? Because every situation is zero sum. For every gain, there's a loss. For every loss, there's a gain. If you go up, are you going down? Yeah, if you go up, you're going down. But people think I'm going up. They don't realize they're coming. If I go up here to experience consciousness, some big mystic experience or whatever you want to call it, if I go up here, I'm going to have to come down. Which is exactly what happens, isn't it? Where are all these wonderful epiphanies that have attracted me to yoga and Vedanta and the spiritual world in general? Where are they now? Gone. If I come down from here, I'm going to have to go back to here, aren't I? If I find myself here, I'm going to find that's this desire to get out of this mess. Somehow, and it's nobody's fault. Ignorance is not your fault. You can't blame yourself and feel guilty because you're ignorant, because you didn't decide to be ignorant. We're all born ignorant. We're all born here not knowing that we're this. If you find yourself born here, you immediately have a desire to what? To get free and to go here. Most of us, if you think about it, you've been searching since you were, 3 years old probably. Up until that time, you were just a little blob of blissful ignorance, charming, blissful ignorance. When you started to think, then what? Then you became a seeker. So if only yoga is required for liberation, there's no need for Vedanta. In fact, the Upanishads contain the seminal ideas of both yoga and Vedanta. Both the yoga and Vedanta, the ideas that are behind both of these teachings are what? Are contained in the Upanishads. Right? Subsequent to Patanjali, means after Patanjali, the cryptic Upanishadic ideas were properly organized, embellished, and elaborately unfolded by great sages as workbooks. Prakarana, they're called prakarana. Prakarana means workbooks. These are our teachings of Satya and Mithya, the teachings of the gunas and all that sort of thing. Those were all evolved for what? To help us understand the nature of this, how this works, and the impermanence of existence. Understand? So all that came up later, but the original problem was what? Elucidated or explained in the Upanishads themselves. So he says here. And they were, and that it was by virtue of those that you became qualified. And it was qualified seekers who were capable of understanding these teachings. See the color coding here? Just a simple look at this chart makes it clear that there's some obviously consciously designed thinker here. There's something thinking this whole thing in a logical, beautiful way. What is it that's thinking that? Ishwara, ignorance. Ignorance is intelligent and beautiful. Huh? That sounds so strange, doesn't it? To say that ignorance is intelligent and beautiful. But if there's ignorance, there's something intelligence behind it, isn't there? Ignorance does, even this isn't, there's nothing beautiful, it's just, it's a golden light or whatever you want to call it. But staring at a golden light all day long is like boring. Isn't it? You don't want to stare at a golden light all day long. Come on. The fourth chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that's the final chapter about perfection. It's called perfection, kaivalyam. Seems to resolve liberation in favor of the Vedantic view, not in favor of the yogic view. The yogic view is that this can be obtained. Now, that's not to say it can't be obtained, but it can't be obtained the way we think it can be obtained. How can this be obtained? By what? By pursuing knowledge instead of ignorance. By pursuing knowledge, you can obtain this. Now, is this something you didn't already have? Huh? No. Yeah, the answer is no, not yes. This is not something you didn't already have. This is the attainment of what's already attained. What's already, we call it the Naishkarmya Siddhi, the already accomplished self. You know the 10th man story, 10th person story. The only reason that the leader of that group could only count 9 people because he didn't include himself in the group. And an objective person came along and made it clear to the leader of the group that he was part of the group, and therefore that he could count himself as what? As present and aware. And therefore what? Nothing was lost. So it says here, and now the problem that we have is that is language, because how do you present something that our language is incapable of presenting? How do you do that? How do you describe something that is everything that is? You have to use language that we've got. There's no special language for this. Is there? If there was, then they'd tell you on TV, and your mom and pop would tell you, and everybody talk. It was all available, but it's not available. Nobody seems to know about this at all. So how do you present? Well, you present this in the language of experience. Now that's a problem, isn't it? Because you might believe the words are actually talking about experiencing this. But this you're already experiencing. This is just your existence itself. When are you not experiencing your existence? When are you not experiencing consciousness? Huh? Tell me, is there any time when you're not experiencing consciousness? No.
Always.
Is there any time when you're not experiencing existence? No, there's not. So the problem then is what? I think that my existence or my consciousness is something other than me. In other words, I'm not identifying myself as existent, shining as unborn, ever, full, complete consciousness or complete awareness. I'm not identifying myself as this. I'm identifying myself as an object here, a born object. And there's not one person in this room who hasn't believed at some point or another that he or she was born at a certain time. Is there? Does anybody never have that feeling that they were born? That's why Vedanta works, because it's true for everybody, because there's only one of us. Understand? There's only one being. And so there's never an argument with this teaching. There's never an argument. You either understand it or you don't. But it's very difficult to understand. Why? Because the language you use is either metaphors, like the journey metaphor. That's a very common metaphor. A goal. In the 10th man, their story, the 10th person story, there's a goal. They're going to go to a destination. In the original story, it was a temple. It was often lost in the forest somewhere, and so forth and so on. In the snake and the rope story, you know the snake and the rope story. What's the goal? Thirst. He's thirsty. He wants to satisfy his thirst. That thirst is what? Desire to know God, right? And when he wants that, he wants that water. Water is just a symbol of what? The self. It's eternal. He's confronted with this snake, which is generated by what? Conditions. Conditions. Conditions symbolize this. It's a world of light. See the light and dark. There's light here and there's dark here. What does that mean? It's a twilight zone. The light and the darkness are mixed up. If the fellow had gotten thirsty at midday and the sun was shining and he went to the well for a drink of water, would he have seen a snake? No. And if he'd gone at 3 a.m. when it was pitch dark, would he have seen a snake? No. Yeah. When did he go? He went in the twilight zone. He went when what? When light and darkness, or knowledge and ignorance, light and darkness are symbols for knowledge and ignorance. See, we have to use symbols. We have to expose our language here. The problem with the modern teachers is they don't. Well, there are a lot of problems, but one of the big problems is what they don't expose their language. They just assume the point of view of a desiring person and say that person should what? Experience this. So you've got guys like Greg Good. Greg's a really lovely man, decent guy. But he's got all these clever little things to produce non-dual experiences, to prove that you're non-dual. Still look at what? In other words, assuming that the position of what? Of a seeking person. When there's actually no seeking person, or if there is a seeking person, that seeking person is the self under the spell of ignorance. So they don't teach what? They don't teach knowledge as the solution. They teach action as the solution. Gain a particular experience. Think about it. See how simple it is? Where can you go? Where can you go when you understand what it means to exist, to be? Where can you go? You can't go anywhere. You're stymied, you're finished, you're cooked, whatever, whatever it is. Huh? And what do? You sit like we're sitting here in silence, just feeling the silence. Can you feel the silence? Yeah. What more is there to do than to be? Well, I want to be this or I want to be that. Well, okay, fine, but you can never be more than what you are. So this desire to be more, to have more, to experience more, to know more, to see more, that's an illegitimate desire. And illegitimate means it's not going to deliver what it purports to deliver. All it's going to deliver is what? More suffering, conflict. A separation, conflict is just separating myself from something that I want. But what if I am what I want? We say, well, people said, what do you want? I said, well, I want me. And you say that to a normal person, what will they say? They say, that man is like, what's he smoking? What's wrong with that man? Right? But that's not an irrational statement if it's backed by this understanding of the zero-sum nature of reality and the difference between what? Between subject and the object, between knowledge and experience. But it needs to be backed. You can't just claim that. You need to understand this simple logic. It's a simple logic. It's the logic that produces the knowledge. That's why we talk so much about logic. Normally, when I want to gain some knowledge, what do? I have an experience, and then in that experience, I gain some knowledge. But this I that I want to know is not an object that can be gained by experience. It's non-objectifiable, isn't it? So how am I going to gain that? It's not an object. I can gain something that I don't have, but I can't gain something that I can have, and that's what I understand, that the problem of gain and loss is a problem of ignorance. Then what I can subject my mind to this teaching and what? And see that I am what I want. Like, what does that mean, in terms of a person? It means that your nature's bliss. You don't want an object for pain and suffering, do you? You may get pain and suffering when you want an object. Yes, that's true. But that's not your intention, is it? Your intention is that object is supposed to deliver bliss to you. But where's the bliss coming from? What's this lesson number 1? Chapter number 1. Where's the bliss coming from?
Self.
Yeah, the self. There's no joy in objects. The joy is projected by ignorance into objects. When ignorance is removed, then what? Then the self is understood to be the source of the joy. Then you can legitimately say, I am what I want. Which means I don't want anything if I know that I am. If I know what it means to say I am, I don't want anything. I allow Ishvara, in other words, ignorance, to supply my desires and my fears, insofar as they're mine. In other words, Ishvara will supply desirable experiences and undesirable experiences, which is what life is, isn't it? It's just, I'm like 80, 81, and now it's all about meds, medication. Now it's all about chemicals. Managing chemicals. I take these chemicals and reading on a machine. These chemicals. Yeah. Every day, you know, I've got to like change my life somehow. Every single day, I've got to like, I'm getting information and then I have to change something. Managing the gunas, like serious guna management. Huh? Think about it. Anyway. So we have these two languages. And actually you don't even need to, what? To gain knowledge and get rid of ignorance. You need to just understand how you're formulating, how you're speaking. In other words, are you there? Because there are two languages. There's a language of knowledge and a language of experience. If I say, this is a light, does that imply any action? It doesn't imply any action, does it? That's the knowledge of. So if I say, you are existent shining as consciousness, what action is required?
Knowledge, understanding.
No action is required. Is it? But if I say, there is this thing called consciousness, it is hidden in your heart. It's deep within, hidden in your heart, and if you breathe a certain way and get knowledge of your breath, and then look for the gap between the thoughts, and then you dive into that gap, because the thoughts have a gap. No thoughts don't overlap like this. So, it's just your mind's like a narrow tube. You could only get one thought in it at a time. You can't hold two thoughts at a time. There's no multitasking here. So one thought comes down, and then right behind it comes another thought. And they never overlap. They don't even overlap this much. There's always a gap. It looks like there's a solid stream of thoughts because they're going so fast. So you think there's a solid, but okay, let's slow our minds down, and then let's spread the gap out a little bit. And now you got to see the gap. Yeah, now dive into the gap, because behind the gap is consciousness, and you'll explode into the transcendental state of consciousness. Oh, really? Huh? You can read my autobiography. I talk about it all, after I explain all the foolish stuff I did. I finally admit that it was all a waste of time, basically, although it wasn't, because I quit thinking of myself as something to be obtained. And when that happened, then the guru came and explained to me the knowledge side. So I did all the yoga, and I got all kinds of those wonderful experiences, but I still had the same problem, until I realized that the problem was ignorance, and the problem wasn't me zipping off to some transcendental state or diving deep within to the ocean of being or consciousness or whatever it was. So, let's see here. We'll just take a break in a minute. Let's see. It still presents knowledge and language, as does the Bhagavad Gita. In any case, Patanjali's presentation of the means of self-knowledge is rudimentary and only makes sense when the spiritual quest is properly contextualized by the complete understanding of the 5 basic stages of enlightenment that are revealed in the Bhagavad Gita in the Vedanta. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Then it makes sense, and you're going to see here, we'll get into the text shortly. In fact, right away, after the break, because the next topic is what is yoga? And then we'll get definitely into yoga, but I want you to understand what the relationship between these things are before we start. So, take a break. We can come back at 11:20 and continue.